So I apologize for the delay. Apparently I can't use PowerPoint. So this is optimize your manufacturing planning using DELMIA. So how do you start getting your design data into your manufacturing space, right? And awesome. So a little bit about me. I went to school at Embry-Riddle. It's a very aerospace heavy school. And I studied mechanical engineering focused in robotics, which is how I started getting into the manufacturing space. I didn't know it at the time, but it's really where I've fallen, and I love it. And then I was hired by DELMIA directly to do the robot programming software. So your simulation, your offline programming, how do you start to build up your work cells, right? And then recently I moved to a partner called MetalQuest Solutions. And what we're doing is working on getting manufacturers a little bit more of the mainstream to have the tools that they need to do their manufacturing processes instead of, you know, a lot of the manual stuff. Next. Yep. So what are some of the benefits that the DELMIA Process Engineering apps have? First, like everything else, it's a web-based interface. So everything's light. You don't have that IT infrastructure, right? It's, you log onto a web browser and you can use it. You have your unified data model. So you don't have to export, import, switch between different software packages. It's all in one place, which means you have your up-to-date data all the time. And then it really helps you accelerate your new product or variant introduction. So being able to plan out your processes, validate them, know that what you're doing is going to work, and then reduce your planning errors. So making sure that you've accounted for all of the different things that come up. So, you know, what happens if I move this, or where do I need my manufacturing assemblies to be? Where is it made? Am I buying different things? And then you're able to leverage that MBOM, so after you've gone through this process, across the DELMIA applications. So it feeds down into your robot programming, it feeds into your machining applications. And again, it goes all the way back up to the engineering data. So when you make a design change in your engineering, you're able to see that filter through all the downstream processes. Okay. So overview of the scenario that I'll be talking about. MetalQuest Solutions is, you know, a partner, but they're also a contract manufacturer. So what we do is we make all of our own tooling for some automated processes. Not just, you know, hey, I have this one fixture, but how do I put as many parts as possible in the machine? So the fixture you'll see, it has the ability to have 6 parts per side. And all of those are set up so you go through one process, you flip the parts, and then you finish them off. So, that was my bad. I can't use a clicker either. And then from there, you want to create your manufacturing bill of materials. So again, defining those sub-assemblies, what goes where, when. And then you create your process plan. So how am I actually putting this together, right? What are the steps? What's the flow look like? And then making modifications to the data. So, you know, it would be really great if you could design it right the first time, but inevitably you're going to have your engineering changes. The other benefit to this is you can start planning your manufacturing before you're finished with your engineering. So you start mapping out those processes. You have your templates. You say, here's what I have available to me to do. And then as you make your engineering changes, it will update your manufacturing data. And then, again, update your process engineering. So first step, define your tooling using SOLIDWORKS. I'm not going to get into here's the step-by-step process of this, but rather show you how you're able to connect to the 3D Experience platform in order to use SOLIDWORKS. So step 1, there's a picture of our product, and I'm using the SOLIDWORKS Connected app. So not the connector, but the connected. You have the same functionality as your typical SOLIDWORKS desktop. Your data is just going to be managed in the cloud. And then, perfect. So again, you'll see up in the upper left-hand corner, you have the SOLIDWORKS Connected logo, not just SOLIDWORKS. You have your feature tree that's, again, still looks the same, and it's going to be reflected in your data in the 3D Experience platform as well. You'll see cross-highlighting between both, so instead of when you select from your feature tree, it will highlight in the 3D view as well as the 3D Experience platform data. And then this functions very similarly to your PDM system, right? So if you haven't implemented it or you just want a little bit easier data management, it's all built in and no setup. If you're using the connector, the only difference will be you have a couple extra steps in the beginning to get that view. Okay, so design in SOLIDWORKS, manage your data with the 3D Experience platform, reduce the amount of time that you have to spend fiddling with that. Next, you'll want to create your manufacturing BOM. So here we're in the manufactured items engineer role using the manufacturing items management app. So again, this is web-based application. Okay. Yeah. Yep, all of these. So you'll see here you have different widgets, right? And you can set up your dashboards to see what you need to see. Here we're doing the manufactured items. You can search for your data because you've managed it in the 3D Experience platform, or you can drag and drop directly from SOLIDWORKS. So instead of having to know exactly what you're looking for, if you have SOLIDWORKS open, you can just go ahead and pull that in. And your first step is going to be create your top-level manufacturing assembly. With the browser app, it already creates your scope link, which basically says, hey, for this manufacturing data, I'm looking in this engineering file, right? And once you've created that, you see it appear in the 3D view. Right now, to create your manufacturing bill of materials, it's a very manual process. Later in 2023, they'll have an easy button, which will basically, easy button. It won't be perfect, but what it does is it takes your engineering structure and automatically maps it to your manufacturing structure. And from there, you're able to rearrange it if you have your different sub-assemblies instead of, you'll see kind of a drag and drop, more manual process. So still in the manufactured items management app. Oh, okay. No, it didn't play, but yes, it does play. Okay, so when you have your top level assembly, you want to start creating your sub-assemblies. And engineering structures tend to be pretty flat, at least traditionally. They're not really designed for manufacturing in mind. So a lot of times you'll have to actually create your sub-assemblies. It's really easy. You use the toolbar, or you right-click and insert a sub-assembly. Once you're done with that, you want to start creating your scope links. So again, scope links are saying, I'm looking here for this data, and that's going to map out what you're doing. So it's a tool. You can also use a relations management app, and then you just select, hey, here's my manufacturing item I'm using, and here's the context that I want to use it in. So if you have your sub-assemblies within your engineering data, you're able to map those, and it pulls it in, and you see the little orange circle on that. Okay. All right. And then once you've created your scope links and everything's working, you're fine. You actually want to start assigning your engineering data. And using this, you can use the BI Essentials, which is a business intelligence, which when you activate the tool, you get color-coded information on your engineering materials. All of those different dots are going to have a different meaning. So it helps you keep track of what's been assigned, what hasn't been assigned. Have I assigned something multiple times, which sometimes happens, but it helps you keep everything in mind. And then as you're assigning different parts, you just drag and drop. So you control, multi-select, drag it over to the manufacturing assembly that you want to use. Again, it's just very light interface, meant to be a pretty fast process. Okay. And then here, just kind of skipping ahead because watching someone drag and drop a million things onto different screens isn't super interesting. You can see you have the cross-highlighting between your MBOM and your EBOM, so your engineering and manufacturing data. And as you click through your manufacturing data, you'll see it cross-highlight in your engineering and also your 3D view. So making sure that everything's assigned, your assemblies are as you expect them. Again, just making sure you're keeping track of things in a very visual way instead of trying to make Excel sheets or just talking about it. So to summarize, you create your manufacturing assembly, then you create your sub-assemblies, and then you can use BI Essentials in order to make sure that everything's been assigned. And then once you've created your MBOM, you can create your process plan, right? So feeding that information down, how am I actually going to go about assembling this? We're in the manufacturing process engineer role with the process management app. So similarly to how you created your MBOM and dragged your engineering data over, you can drag and drop between your different tabs in your dashboard. You could also search for it up top. So, and then the first step is you want to create a work plan. And so what your work plan does is it says, here's my overall process. It puts everything together. And then after you create your work plan, you want to create your scope. And that's a pretty common theme throughout the application. So you create your scope between your MBOM and EBOM. That says, with my manufacturing data, I'm looking at this engineering data. And then with your process plan, you want to create a scope between your process plan and your manufacturing BOM. So where am I looking, what product am I looking to in order to create my process? And then once you have your top-level process, you create header operations. And header operations are basically saying, here's my different stations, here's, maybe you have different lines, and this is where the operations are going to take place. So with all of this, it's a very similar workflow. You select from your toolbar in the bottom and define what you want to create. You'll also notice there's an estimated time. You can change that when you create it. You can also double-click in the window to change it, and that's how long is this going to take. And then you start getting your estimates, and then as you build and you define your processes and gather your data, you're able to update that information. So